Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few riders who come across from mountain biking over the years, and you know, the specific type of effort that the mountain bikers are doing, you know, when they're racing is lending itself very well to becoming a pretty good climber. You know, that's just the nature of the mountain biking. And then I think that the biggest issue that those riders are having is adapting to life in the peloton and dealing with too many riders around them.
And it's funny as well, because maybe 15, 20 years ago, you might have said the gears could have been an issue as well, but now the ratios are getting smaller and smaller and smaller for the road bikes, and much more like mountain bike gears, that not even the cadence or anything like that is a problem.
No, it's not. It's you know, and the mountain bikers do an awful lot of training on the road as well, just to get the hours in and certain types of efforts as well. So there's a lot of crossovers between all four different sort of the main disciplines of cycling, should we call it, you know, road, track, mountain bike, and cyclocross. And I think you know, certainly looking at a couple of very interesting prospects for the future in road cycling coming through from cyclocross in Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel. And I, for one, am really looking forward to next year's Spring Classics to watch those two, because in terms of arch rivals in cycling, there hasn't really been that many things over the years. But I've read quite an interesting statistic between those two riders. They've met each other 150 times since they were juniors, and at no point had either of them been off the podium when they've been racing in cyclocross against each other. So it is a fierce battle between them. And
do you have types of fans who prefer one rider to another, a bit like, you know, the Ronaldo and Messi camp, or Pelé and Maradona?
Yeah, definitely. Certainly within the cross scene, there's a lot of that going on. Big fan clubs as well coming out every time. So yeah, it's nice to see that there's so much crossover going on between the different sports. And if we're looking from a British perspective, the track program that British Cycling have got in place, and the riders that they bring through, you know, track is the main focus. There's a bit of road going on the sort of to build up the endurance of the riders for the track,
as we see here with the German national team.
Exactly. But then by the time they either leave the British program, or they decide that they've done enough track and decide that they need you know, they want to go out on the road and start sort of looking for different challenges, then they are very, very capable road riders as well. It takes them maybe a year or so to actually get a fully fledged road rider, but yeah, they certainly got a lot of the sort of basic fitness levels and skills and all that sort of stuff with them.
Just over 20 kilometers to go. The expected and anticipated crosswind hasn't really materialized too much. I'm keeping a constant eye on the shape of the bunch to see what's happening. Talking all things cross and Spring Classics, and then Belgium and Holland. But it's a Slovenia at the front. Matic Kroselja at 1 minute and 18 seconds from the peloton, with just over 20 kilometers to go. None of the sprint teams will be panicking here, will they?
No, definitely not yet. A minute and 18 goes quite quickly when you've got a number of teams together to work, really. And I think the longer you leave a rider sit out here, and the harder the chase become, the better it is for certain types of sprinters as well. So I have a feeling that certainly the German national team, we know that how fast they can ride. We saw that in one of the lead-outs for the intermediate sprints yesterday, how fast they were going. And I think they will just sit there and wait and just make it one big effort. So yeah, so far it's all under control from a bunch's perspective anyway.
I've been riding for just over 2 hours. For those of you just tuning in, there's the Hong Kong national champion on the right hand side. Red top of the white jersey, there it is on the left now, 154. That's Ko Siu Wai, best known rider in that team as far as world cycling is concerned. Chung King Lok was at 2 minutes and 38 yesterday, but it was Fung Ka Hu, their best placed team, the Hong Kong Sports Institute pro cycling team. Of course, they're one of the teams that have come with the biggest collection of names, certainly in track cycling. Chun Wing, pardon me, is the Madison partner of Chung King Lok, recently in action at the Asian Games. And Vincent Lau as well, also in action in Jakarta. Of course, there's now a velodrome in Hong Kong too. Now their best ever performance on the track at the Asian Games. So inside 20 kilometres to go. Interesting that St George Continental team have pulled their man from the front now, and they're starting to leave it all up to Hung Sheng again. That is, everything gets darker. Look at the lights on the cars behind now too.
Now he's back. Fuck. Oh. Sorry. Oh, it's just a fucking nightmare.
And nice to see some of the local architecture. We've been out there on the dual carriageway by the coast all day. Beautiful bridges on the left-hand side. No shortage of water around here. We're in the River Delta. And heading away from the seaside. Things do get a little more hilly, but today it's all about flat racing. And inside the final 19 kilometres with 1 minute and 18 seconds for Matic Grosselje, rider from Ljubljana Gusto Shaurum team from Lithuania. And they do have one Taiwanese rider, Huang Wencheng, amongst their 5 on the road. Of course, the Gusto team, formerly a Taiwanese team, actually. Peloton a little more strung out now. Of course, we're talking about track cycling in Hong Kong, weren't we, a minute ago? And I think you've just been checking the calendar out.
Well, they got the one of the World Cup rounds there on the 25th to 27th of January 2019. So clearly, it's quite a big.
It's the last World Cup before the World Championships as well this year. So Hong Kong will be a very important, that Hong Kong velodrome we're talking about, a very important part of the track season this year. Of course, for those of you resident in Europe, next up is Berlin. And then we've got Great Britain after that, and that's London this year, Manchester last year. And the London leg comes just before Christmas, 14th to 16th of December. That's before the series then heads to Oceania and New Zealand, before that 6th and final World Cup in Hong Kong, and the World Championships to take place as usual in March. Heading up through Wenxi village. And that's Tantu Bridge in the background. Still again a little bit of a threat of rain, but you can see that the road looks still fairly dry.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Cap down to 110 now as Grosjean starts to get a bit of advice. What will he be being told here?
Probably just more about the time gap and giving him some encouragements. There's not an awful lot that you can sort of tell a rider when they're sitting in this particular situation. It's just whatever they got in their legs they're going to have to use, and it's got 17 kilometers of racing left, so just under half an hour, basically 25 minutes maybe, and it's how they press on. Good to see some spectators out there.
This is the scene we want to see, isn't it? We talked about the dual carriageway problem, if you like, in a lot of UCI races around this region, and this is exactly what we want to see. Contact with the bike race, with local people, and the inspiration that, you know, you can get out on a bike and race it too. I know that that cycling for leisure is a huge pastime in China, certainly cycling for commuting and getting to work. It is one of the reasons why a lot of these races exist, to invest in it and to invest in the infrastructure. I know that for the local Fuzhou government, it's all about tourism as well, so it would be good to show the region off. And we had that yesterday, but it's more the start of the stage, up and down that motorway.
Because it doesn't seem like there's a shortage of roads anywhere in, you know, to take the riders through villages and,
as well.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe a bit of lack of imagination there.
Oh, you understand as well. I mean, Fuzhou, a city of 11 million people, closing roads might not be too popular. Things like that. It's all difficult. Now then, this is the stuff we've come to see. Looking onto the hills in the background. That is a mightily impressive structure.
It is.
So 16.9 kilometers to go. And Grosjean, the Slovenian rider riding for Ljubljana Gusto, is at 1 minute and 10, with the peloton chasing on behind. Short section of uphill road. There hasn't been too much of that today, and there isn't too much remaining, I can tell you. I think what we just saw was the Putuo Temple.
Well, I think so far the biggest change in altitude we've had is about 6-7 meters.
It's like an old money.
So it's one of those things when you start, you get to the hotel and you download your data from your bike computer. You start knocking on the screen there, thinking there's something wrong with the altitude. You know, you've managed to gain about 110 meters of altitude in the whole stage.
The Hangsheng team starting to wind things up a little. Yellow jersey, not under any sort of pressure here. Let's remind you that Grosjean, the man out in front, is 2 minutes and 34 behind the lead of Liu Shanjing. It's down to the sprinters teams to do some work here. They have, pardon me, as of yet resisted.
It looked more like the Hangsheng team were sort of left on their own on the front again. So it's almost like the St. George Continental team have pulled out of helping, and certainly, you know, investing too much energy into it, and
saving things for the lead out. And of course, let's remember that they also have work to do throughout the week, because they've got Ben Dybal at 13 seconds overall in 4th place too. Yeah,
so even more strange than seeing as they actually got some GC aspirations to protect, and I mean, it might just be my eyes that were sort of deceiving me, but it certainly looked like we had all of the Hangsheng team, all six on the front, and no other sort of jersey mixing it up in there with them. And this is where you know, the different cultures and the different sort of the language barriers can also become an issue. As a rider for the Hangsheng team, and certainly if you were one of the senior riders, you would go back and have a chat with one or two of the other teams that have got sprinters or GC riders and say, look, chuck us one rider and you know, to help out, and we'll sort of work with you.
Into the decisive stages of stage 2 of the Tour of Fuzhou 2018. It's the final 2.1 race on the UCI calendar this year. For those of you who maybe aren't into the sometimes confusing UCI classifications of races, which I can completely understand, it basically means that this is the biggest race on the calendar anywhere in the world remaining this year. Prize is still up for grabs for anybody who wants to salvage the season. Starting with the sprint here on our way to the finish point, which finds itself in Chanjiang Manchu village today. It's just to the southeast of Fuzhou city of good fortune in the southeast of China, in Fujian province. We're talking 58 seconds of a gap now from our sole leader, Matic Grosselja of Ljubljana Gusto Shaurum team, to the rest of the peloton. 126 riders on the road, by the way. 22 teams here. For those of you just getting up, eating your breakfast and watching, a very good morning to you all. You've tuned in at just the right time. We've had the racing up and down the motorway to warm things up. Heading in towards a few different villages now outside of the city, getting to see some of the local architecture. It's quite dark and grey. No rain as of yet, though. We've had the odd spot on the lens of the camera, but the roads are nice and dry, and we hope it stays that way. It doesn't rain too much at this time of year in this part of the world, so I can imagine that with the intense traffic and the 11 million people in Fuzhou, the roads could get quite slippy.
It's interesting that how the different surfaces in different countries they deal with the rain. We had a conversation about Mallorca the other day, and as soon as you get the slightest bit of damp on those roads, you might as well bring your ice skates with you, because
Tell me about it. My shoulder still hurts from a crash out a year ago.
Yeah, it's virtually impossible to stay upright on the bike, whereas other parts of the world you can go around corners just about the same in the wet as you can in the dry, and you're never quite sure until you've effectively had a go and seen what the grip level is like, what it's going to be, you know. And that's one of the things, sort of, when you go out there and start racing, and certainly as a younger rider, getting the experience of racing in different countries at different types of roads and different types of surfaces all the way around the world will help you gain that experience and gain the knowledge and understanding of how you work out when too far is too far in terms of pushing your tires and their grip, and working out sort of different tire pressures and stuff like that to use in different countries as well. So I think that's one of the really important bits as a developing young cyclist as well, is giving them opportunity to race in places like this where it's completely brand new road network and new types of sort of surfaces.
Well, we're looking at towards the end here. Remember, we saw the young Kiwi Dylan Kennett yesterday. 2 times a stage winner of the Tour of Taihu this year. He was up there in 2nd and 3rd places on stages as well. He's finished 2nd in a stage of the Rasen Island a couple of years ago when he was a 21-year-old, getting better and better, and he has the support of the St George Continental team, a team from Australia. Also, we're looking, as far as Australia is concerned, at Caden Groves as well from Mitchelton Bike Exchange. He is one of the strongest sprinters in the race. Mitchelton Bike Exchange having the 19-year-old Caden Groves there. A stage winner in the Tour of Qinghai Lake, a stage winner here last year at the age of 18 years of age. And again, that was the 3rd stage in Linjiang, where we head tomorrow. Also a winner at the weekend of a stage of the Tour of Chuanzhou Bay. So in form, Caden Groves. We're looking at the Kiwis and the Aussies. Maybe the likes of Vasily Strokov as well from Mint Cycling Club. One of the German national team riders. Jasper Fram was the man they were looking at yesterday, but a versatile squad. There are plenty of opportunities from around the bunch, and we're just over 10 kilometers from the finish now. And this is the stage where, if you are riding for one of the aforementioned sprinters or any of the other teams looking to sprint, then you have to start formulating your plan and implementing it.
Yeah, and it's crunch time now. 10k to go. You really do need to start already be organised. I'd say it's probably less important in a race when you only have 6 riders on the start line. Bunch tends to be a bit smaller. It's a bit easier to get around and get to the front, and it's slightly less chaotic, certainly on the run-in towards the finish. In the final 3 or 4k is usually more chaotic because you haven't got enough men to keep the speed high enough. But certainly, if we're looking at how some of the intermediate sprints have been led out, I think the Germans certainly will be keeping that pace high enough for long enough to keep the bunch strung out. And if the wind directions is the way it's supposed to be, and we're supposed to have a bit of a tailwind coming in towards the finish, then again, I think the key thing is going to be the timing of the sprint, and not actually coming from or starting the sprint being led out and dropped off at 200 meters, but actually running the wheels a little bit and sort of building up the speed, sat behind someone and kicking again with the last 50 to 100 meters.
They're travelling now. They are travelling behind,
yeah.
As you can see.
I don't think that. I think that ticker is a bit on the sticky side. I would have said we were down to less than 40 seconds.
I'm going to say 40 seconds, you'd still be umming and ahhing here with just less than 10 kilometres to go and thinking, well, it's maybe not all over yet if somebody hangs on. But the way they're travelling behind and the fact that that ticker hasn't moved, I think you would say advantage peloton here.
Yeah, definitely advantage peloton. But again, still the Hangzhou team just on the front on their own doing all the work. They're not getting any help or asking for any help even.
I wonder if we're going to see the team pay for this in a couple of days' time, because they've been working since the very early part of the stage.
And I you say in a couple of days, I reckon we'll see some something already tomorrow in terms of they'll be feeling this in a big way. And it's not just necessarily the fact that you've been riding hard on the front all day, but it's the mental stress for these guys as well that will take its toll, and you know, it's just a general fatigue that starts setting in, and it does happen quite quickly if you're not used to it.
33 seconds we're told now, with 8.7 kilometres to go. Nasty bit of false flat uphill road. He's struggling here. No wonder as well. It's been a long effort this from Groschel. He should be congratulated for giving it a real good go. Had the courage to go off on his own. We started stage 2 with 115.7 kilometres on the clock. We now have just 8.3, and the team starting to line up in their formations now.
Yeah.
German national team moving up on the right side in their white jerseys. St. George Continental in the purple alongside them. And it's now a fight for position as finally the yellow jersey team relinquish control at the front. Yeah,
Mitchelton Bike Exchange were up there on the right-hand side of the road as well. So you see all of the teams who've got fast men are now starting to really shuffle around for position, and finding them certainly in formation quite a lot actually. It's not often we see those kind of drag races anymore between, you know, a couple of different teams, but here we are. It's very much that.
The H&R Block team on the right hand side as well, and they have their Norwegian sprinter Sindre Bjerkestrand Hogsfjord. He lost 13 minutes yesterday. On the left-hand side, the Australian national team in their light blue. Australia Sunshine Coast, or Ride Sunshine Coast, I should say, pardon me. Armani Drake, another man who lost 13 minutes yesterday. Freddie Ovetu, we expected to be up there, not quite pulling it off. He was at 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Still their best placed rider, though. As it's just 30 seconds now for Groschel. Look around at the camera, knows he's suffering. Wants it right in front of him to ride in, looks around again. Can't knock his effort off until he sees them coming off behind. No. And there they are. They have him in sight. That's less than 30 seconds now. There you go, 24.
Yeah, it's you can't really back off when you're a rider of sitting out there. 6.5 kilometers, anything can happen. Touch your wheels up there now, and all of a sudden, you know, things change in the peloton, and you've bought yourself those extra 5-10 seconds, and that could be the difference between you getting caught with a K to go or winning.
That's the king of the mountains, Hannibal Tesfaye, but he'll be thinking of bigger things to come, because he's up there in third place in the overall general classification. He'll just want to stay in touch and finish the stage today.
Yeah, the dangerous position to put yourself in, though. If you are running a GC race, then you want to make sure that you don't get caught out by any splits in the peloton and end up getting some, what should we call them, penalty seconds by the fact that there's a gap in the bunch.
And there certainly are motoring along at the front now. You could just see that real fight for position again with H&R Block on the right hand side, Australian national team on the left, St George in the centre. Not too long until Groeschel is caught now. Forget that number 24 at the top of the screen. It's just under 6 kilometres to go. 2.5 hours of racing, and we are on for a sprint finish on stage 2 of the Tour of Fuzhou. So Groeschel about to be caught.
Looks like H&R Block are now taking control of the race. At this point in time, certainly when you're only with 6-man teams, but even with 8- and 9-man teams, that sort of 7 to 8 kilometers down to about 3k is the difficult bit, to stay cool enough.
When do you commit?
Calm enough, wait for it, let someone else take up the job, still wait for it, allow yourself to get a bit boxed in, still wait, and then go.
Less than 5 kilometers to go, and the breakaway is done for the day. Matic Groeschel has been absorbed by the peloton, and it's the H&R Block team riding en masse at the front now, led by their sports director Maxime Martin. Got the likes of Galarreta from Spain, Rupnik, Valade, Pavlic, who we saw in the breakaway earlier on in the day, and Hogsvær. Now at the back, a couple of the Sparta Prague riders, 56 and 53 there are Pavel Stor and Yuri Nezveda respectively. Which of the warriors going into battle are going to take the victory? It's a flat road now that just follows around the edge of the river. Left turn approaching. 4.3 kilometers to go. Minx Cycling Club getting involved as well at the front in their red jerseys. A couple of the Beijing XDS riders in the white and red and yellow behind too. And the Isan team in their blue jerseys as well from Japan. Mongolia on the right hand side, the national team. Here's the German national team on the left hand side with 4 kilometers to go.
Yeah, the Germans are sitting really well placed there in really sort of good formation, a couple of wheels back. They're not really massively exposed to the wind, so they're just biding their time and waiting for the right opportunity to light things up. And interesting to see when they are going to decide to go, because with the firepower that team has, I think they could afford probably to go now, and you know, there's a couple of the bigger boys in there. They'll be able to do a good K and a bit on the front each before they sort of start fatiguing.
Interesting, I've just spotted 3 of the St George Continental riders right at the back here.
Yeah, it's always difficult when you got they clearly have some GC aspirations and having riders who help the GC man, and then you got a sprinter who's clearly very, very good, and you got to look after him as well. So finding the combination between doing the two is difficult, and also some of the guys, the climbers, don't necessarily enjoy being up here in the hot air and getting mixed up in against some of the. If you're looking at the German boys here, certainly 1 or 2 of them are very well built, and by the time they start messing around with people, then it becomes a bit sketchy.
So here's this lead out being put into action that you talked about. 2.5 kilometers to go. They lose a man. They've still got 5 men up there.
Yeah, this next turn now needs to be quite long, because they got their sprinter there in third wheel already. So we're looking at a good almost 1.5 kilometers that's needed before they can peel off.
Where's Tony Martin when you need him?
Yeah,
Not called up for national duty this week.
No, but if they got one of their
Holiday.
pursuiter boys, he'd be able to do a good couple of kilometres at 65k an hour. So.
Inside the final 1.8 kilometres now, it's the German national team in their white jerseys on the front. 5 of their 6 men still left there. Behind Minsk are there as well. The Minsk Cycling Club will be looking out for the likes of Caden Groves from Mitchelton Bike Exchange, for Dylan Kennett as well, the Kiwi from St George Continental Team. This is anybody's sprint, and remember, only 2 sprints out of the 5 days here, possibly 3, but it's undulating tomorrow. This is quick, this is difficult, and anybody involved in the GC needs to stay up there as well. It's a real fight for position as we approach the final kilometre. Germany now down to 4 men.
Yeah, what a turn that was by the German rider on the front there now, and this is what they do so well, the team pursuit riders and pursuiters, and this is all now about keeping that control. But watch out for Dylan Kennett and the way he has sprinted in the past, and certainly in the intermediate sprints, he comes from reasonably far back and just getting the timing right.
Well, he'll be wearing a purple jersey representing the St George Continental Team. He's up there on the left-hand side now. Caden Groves on his wheel as well for Mitchelton Bike Exchange. Here we come, though, into the final few hundred metres. Still 2 men left there for the German national team. But look out, too, for Mitchelton Bike Exchange on the left-hand side. German national team are going to lead it out from the front as we approach the final finishing straight. Just a few hundred metres to go now. It's the German national team that launched their sprint through the centre now. Look out for Groves on the left-hand side. Looks like he might have been boxed in, though. Groves is there on the left-hand side, the yellow helmet. It's Caden Groves on the left-hand side. We've had a crash as well, but it's going to be victory for the German national team. Crashes all over as they come to the line. That may well affect the general classification as we go into the next few days. Chaos behind, but in the end it was a brilliant job. Very, very well done by the German national team, who take their victory.
Yeah, fair play to the German riders. They did a spectacular lead out there.
And it's Leon Roder, the man who's taken that victory, being congratulated there by the man who was in the breakaway earlier on today, Von Reed. So victory to Leon Roder of the German national team. But behind, worrying scenes as we had several riders go down right on the line.
There's some interesting, should we call it, barrier design there in the final few hundred meters. I thought that they looked a little bit on the sketchy side, and clearly that didn't help help things an awful lot. Hopefully, no one who's too badly injured there.
Well, Leon Roder, 23 years of age, winning the stage. But riders all over the road behind. There will be some angry riders. There is Freddie Ovett up and moving around, thankfully. Talked about him at length yesterday. In the meantime, for this man, it is the biggest win of his road career. He's ridden for the Team Sunweb development team, who's a stagiaire at Sunweb last year. He launches it straight through the middle. Caden Groves trying to move in and get involved from the left-hand side alongside Kennett as well. And it's just after this point that we have the first crash on the left-hand side. Look at that. Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
The TV tower there is really not well placed, and I think that's...
It's the rider from Australia who goes down on the left-hand side, but we've also got that provoking movement across the road. Riders on the right-hand side. Yeah, that is something that needs to be sorted out, isn't it? I mean, we talked quite a lot, didn't we, about the Professional Cyclists Association and safe courses with the election a couple of months ago between Bugno and Miller. But this is the sort of stuff that, at any sort of level of racing, needs to be sorted.
Well, it just can't happen. You know, it just goes into common sense as far as I'm concerned. And
I mean, for those maybe who haven't raced before, or maybe watching and switching on for the first time, having their breakfast and eating the cornflakes, we're talking about the barriers that intrude into the road and don't leave a straight line.
But anything that doesn't leave the full width of the road, and you can see that they're coming up here. The barriers are fine the way they are here now, but as we're coming up towards the finish, they start to waver a bit, and then you've got that TV tower out here that's clearly been pushing the riders across. and I think that's what's causing the first initial crash.
And then the finish line itself.
And then the finish line itself is narrower. And I see one of the riders out on the right-hand side here who just gets caught on this one. It actually ends up going into the finishing gantry, and that should just not. It should just not happen. The actual finish line and the gantry is narrower than what the barriers are beforehand. So shrink the road down at an earlier point and just keep it narrower for the full distance, rather than doing what they've done here.
Well, that, I'm afraid, is going to overshadow the biggest victory on the road in the career of Leon Roda. Had a decent enough year this year, getting better and better. He's finished in the top 20 in Hanzheimer Classic before, and he's been up there in the Tour of Cologne, 12th this year. But this, the first big win for him. 23-year-old from Germany, with the chaos happening behind. Roda out and safe in the front of it. Looks as though Caden Groen just finished in second place. We wait for the official results, but I'm afraid it's a lesson in how not to plan a bike race course. And we saw it, and we talked about the entertainment value and the scenic value earlier on with the motorway, and this is, I'm afraid, far more important because it affects the safety of everybody. Example. There's the top 10. Leon Roda victorious over Caden Groen. Joey van Rey in third place, not bad after being in the breakaway earlier on in the day. Dylan Kennett in fourth place. Iwandi Lakasek of Terengganu in fifth place. Natnael Tesfasyon, who's in the break yesterday for Eritrea. Very, very good ride from him. Andre Kulyuk of XDS. Jason Valad, Jan Stor and Hayato Okamoto in 10th place. Of course, all on the same time. Well, we wait to see if anybody in the general classification was affected in that crash towards the end. That could well affect things over the next few days.
Yeah, it's never easy to ride around when you've had a crash, whether you hurt yourself or whether it's just, you know, I'm saying just taking a bit of skin off it. As a bike rider, that's probably the least of your worries, but it still affects your energy systems, and you know, having to deal with trying to heal yourself as at the same time as you're racing is certainly takes the edge off you.